My wife served me divorce papers on a Tuesday afternoon because she thought I was a failure. My name is Raymond Jensen, and I'm 35 years old. What Emily didn't know, what she never bothered to find out, was that I came from one of the wealthiest families in America, the Adamsons. $700 million in assets, built over 3 generations. I changed my last name at 18 specifically to escape that world, to find someone who'd love me for who I was instead of what I had. I spent 8 years married to a woman who saw a struggling high school history teacher making $52,000 a year. She got promoted to senior marketing director, started earning 6 figures, and suddenly I wasn't good enough anymore. She left me for Gerald Harrison, a car dealer with 3 locations who bought her a Cartier bracelet and drove a yellow Corvette. She thought she was trading up. I let her walk away without saying a word about my family fortune, knowing that one day she'd find out exactly what she'd thrown away. But let me start from the beginning. Before I go any further, let me know in the comments where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow I will share a story you don't want to miss. I pulled into the driveway of our rental house at 3:40 on a Tuesday afternoon, same as I had 1,000 times before. My briefcase sat on the passenger seat next to a stack of ungraded essays about the New Deal that I'd been avoiding all week. Teaching American history to teenagers who thought the Great Depression was something their parents complained about required patience I didn't always have. But it was honest work, meaningful work, the kind of work that mattered more than a paycheck. I grabbed my things and headed inside, already thinking about dinner. Maybe I'd grill chicken, throw together a salad. Emily had been working late most nights recently, but her car was in the driveway, so maybe we'd actually eat together for once. The moment I opened the front door, I knew something was wrong. Emily sat on our thrift store couch, hands folded in her lap like she was waiting for a job interview. Next to her sat a man I'd never seen before, tall, artificially tanned, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than our monthly rent. He had the kind of polished appearance designed specifically to intimidate people like me. "Raymond," Emily said. Her voice was flat, rehearsed. "This is Damian Whitmore, my attorney." I set down my briefcase slowly, keeping my face neutral. "Attorney? For what?" She reached forward and slid a manila folder across the coffee table toward me. The movement was deliberate, final. I want a divorce. 3 words. 8 years of marriage, and she needed 3 words to end it. I looked at the folder but didn't touch it. "You're serious?" "Completely." She straightened her shoulders, and I caught the glint of a bracelet on her wrist I'd never seen before. Gold and diamonds. Cartier, if I had to guess. "Raymond, I've outgrown this. I'm making 6 figures now as senior marketing director, and you're still teaching high school for $52,000 a year. We live in a rental house, we drive used cars. I deserve better than this mediocre existence." The words should have hurt. Maybe they would have, if I hadn't seen this coming for months. Ever since her promotion, Emily had been different, colder, always comparing our life to her colleagues' lives, always finding us lacking. "Mediocre existence," I repeated. "That's what you call our marriage?" "I call it settling." She lifted her chin, defiant. "I'm 33 years old, Raymond. I refuse to waste another year of my life pretending this is enough." Damian cleared his throat, clearly enjoying his front row seat to my humiliation. "Mr. Jensen, my client has been more than patient with this situation, and she's prepared to offer very reasonable." "I'm sorry." I turned to face him directly, my voice dropping to something cold and sharp. "Did I ask you to speak? You're here as a prop, not a participant. So sit there, look expensive, and keep your mouth shut unless I specifically ask for your legal opinion, which I won't." His face went red, but he shut up. Emily's eyes flashed with anger. "See?" She gestured at me like I'd just proven her point. "This is exactly what I'm talking about. You're content with being small, Raymond. Small job, small dreams, small life. I'm 33, and I'm done settling for someone who has no ambition." I walked to the window, looking out at our quiet street. Modest homes, older cars, normal people living normal lives. She had absolutely no idea who she was talking to. The Adamson name, my real family name, the one I'd legally changed when I turned 18, meant something in this state. Adamson Industries, $700 million in assets. My grandfather built an empire from nothing, and I'd walked away from all of it specifically to avoid moments like this. I wanted someone who'd love Raymond Jensen, the teacher, not whoever the Adamson heir happened to be. Guess I got my answer. You know what? I turned back to face her. You want a divorce? Fine. You'll have it. But let me make something crystal clear, Emily. You don't get to rewrite our history here. You don't get to act like you're the victim. You're walking away because you think you found someone richer than me. Her cheeks flushed. I never said, please. I gestured at Damien. You didn't hire one of the most expensive divorce attorneys in the state just to split our IKEA furniture and my teacher's pension. You met someone with money, and now you're trading up. Damien started to object, but Emily cut him off. So what if I did? At least Gerald has ambition. He owns 3 car dealerships, Raymond, 3. He takes me to actual nice restaurants. He bought me this bracelet last month. She held up her wrist, showing off the Cartier. When's the last time you bought me anything that didn't come from Amazon? Gerald Harrison, I said. Flashy guy, lots of gold jewelry. Drives that ridiculous yellow Corvette I've seen around town. She lifted her chin higher. He's successful. He's a small-time car dealer who leases a fake lifestyle to impress people exactly like you, I said. But sure, Emily, he's your big upgrade. Your ticket to the life you deserve. Better than being married to a teacher who'll never amount to anything. The words hung in the air between us. There it was. 8 years distilled into one brutal sentence. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice steady and cold. I'm going to make this divorce as easy as possible. You want out? You're out. I'll sign whatever papers your expensive attorney draws up. Split everything down the middle, not that there's much to split, according to you. Emily blinked, clearly thrown. You're not going to fight me? Why would I? You just told me I'm a nobody who'll never amount to anything. Why would I waste my time fighting for someone who thinks so little of me? I picked up my briefcase. I'll stay at a hotel tonight. Have your papers ready by Friday. Raymond. For the first time, uncertainty crept into her voice. We're done here, Emily. You made your choice. Live with it. I walked out of that house and didn't look back. 3 days after the confrontation, I sat in my father's study at the Adamson estate, a place I hadn't visited in almost 2 years. The room smelled exactly how I remembered. Leather, old wood, and money that had been sitting still for generations. Douglas Adamson looked up from his mahogany desk, his weathered face creasing with the kind of concern only a parent can manage. So she doesn't know, he said, pouring scotch from a crystal decanter that was probably older than I was. Never told her. Never told anyone. I accepted the glass he offered. That was the whole point, Dad. And now you're certain. He settled into the chair across from me, studying my face. She chose money over you. Or what she thought was money. Gerald Harrison owns 3 car dealerships. To Emily, that makes him wealthy. I took a sip. The scotch was smooth and expensive, the kind of thing I could afford but never bought. She has absolutely no idea what real wealth actually looks like. My father's mouth twitched. Harrison Auto Group. I know of them. Decent operation. He probably clears 2, maybe 3 million a year in personal income. Not insignificant. To Emily, it's a fortune. To us, it's a rounding error. Dad swirled his scotch, watching the amber liquid catch the lamplight. What are you going to do? Sign the papers. Let her go. She wants her new life. She can have it. And you're not going to tell her, even now? I met his eyes. Why would I? The whole point was finding someone who wanted Raymond Jensen, the teacher, not whoever the Adamson heir happens to be. She failed that test spectacularly. She'll find out eventually, Dad said quietly. Someone will tell her. Someone always does. I know. And when that happens, I smiled, but there wasn't any warmth in it. That's when the real justice begins. Right now, she thinks she's winning. She's trading up, escaping her mediocre life with the failure husband. Let her have that moment. Let her feel superior. My father studied me for a long moment. You've got your grandfather's streak in you. Albert never forgot a betrayal either. I'm not looking for revenge, Dad. I'm looking for peace. And I can't have peace while I'm married to someone who sees me as a disappointment. I stood. walking to the window that overlooked the estate grounds. I'm going to sign her papers, wish her well, and move on with my life, while sitting on a $700 million fortune she knows nothing about. While building the life I actually want, I corrected, turning back to face him. The money was never the point. Being valued was. Dad raised his glass, something like pride flickering in his expression. To being valued, then. To being valued. We drank, and the scotch burned in the best possible way. I left the estate that night as the sun was setting, watching the mansion shrink in my rearview mirror. The security guard at the gate, Marcus, who'd been there since I was a kid, gave me a wave. I waved back. Everything felt right. Clear. I'd spent 8 years testing Emily's character, hoping she'd prove my cynicism wrong. She hadn't. But at least now I knew for certain, and I could move forward without wondering what might have been. Sometimes the most important answers are the ones you were hoping you'd never get. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I was genuinely happy for the first time in years. I'd settled into a comfortable townhouse near Jefferson High. Nothing fancy, but it had a small office where I could grade papers and a kitchen that actually got morning sunlight. I'd started running again, dropped 10 pounds, even began casually dating. Nothing serious, just coffee with Rebecca from the English department and one dinner with a woman I'd met at a bookstore. Normal stuff. The kind of life you build when you're not constantly wondering if your wife thinks you're a disappointment. Then my father called on a Wednesday evening, his voice carrying that particular tone that meant something significant was happening. "Your grandfather wants to see you," he said. "It's important." I drove to the estate that same night, wondering what Albert needed. At 89, he was still sharp as broken glass, but he'd been talking about retirement for the past year. Maybe he was finally pulling the trigger. When I walked into the study, Albert sat behind the same desk where I'd talked with my father 6 months ago. He gestured to the chair across from him without bothering with pleasantries. "I'm stepping down as chairman," he said. No preamble, no small talk. That was Albert. "Grandfather, if you need..." "Your father will handle daily operations," he continued, cutting me off smoothly. "But I'm restructuring the family trust. You're getting direct access to your full inheritance now, not when I die." I blinked. "I don't need..." "This isn't about need, Raymond." His eyes locked onto mine. "It's about legacy. You're 35 years old. You've proven you can live without the money. You've built your own identity, made your own choices. That's exactly what I needed to see before handing you this kind of responsibility." He slid a leather folder across the desk. I opened it slowly. The numbers swam in front of my eyes. $180 million. Annual trust disbursements of $8 million. "Grandfather, I appreciate this, but I'm making the announcement at the charity gala next month." My stomach dropped. The gala that's covered by every major news outlet in the state. The very same. A smile tugged at his mouth. "The Adamson Foundation's 60th anniversary. Big event. Lots of cameras. Your name, your face, and your net worth will be very public." I sat back in the chair, processing. "She's going to find out." "Your ex-wife?" His eyes actually twinkled. "I imagine she will. Along with everyone else who doubted you." I thought of Emily sitting in our living room, her living room now, calling me a nobody, telling me I'd never amount to anything, trading me in for Gerald Harrison and his yellow Corvette and his 3-car dealerships that probably earned less in a year than my trust fund paid out in interest every month. She thought she was upgrading, I said quietly. "And she'll learn differently." Albert leaned forward. "Raymond, you asked to be valued for who you are. She failed that test. But the world should know who you actually are. What you've accomplished. What you chose to walk away from because you have principles. I didn't do any of this for recognition. I know. That's exactly why you deserve it." He poured 2 glasses of scotch from the same decanter my father had used. "1 month from now, everyone will know. The business community, the media, your colleagues, your students' parents, Emily." I accepted the glass, my mind racing through implications. The quiet life I'd built, the anonymity I'd carefully maintained, all of it was about to shatter into 1,000 public pieces. "Ready or not," I said. "Ready or not," Albert agreed. We drank. and I left his study understanding that in 30 days my carefully guarded secret would become front-page news. Emily was going to learn exactly what she'd thrown away. 1 month later, I stood at the entrance of the Grand Belmont Hotel in a Tom Ford tuxedo that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Carla McKinley walked beside me in a simple black dress she'd probably bought at Macy's, looking beautiful without trying too hard. "This is insane," she whispered as we entered the ballroom. Crystal chandeliers hung from vaulted ceilings. 500 guests milled around in designer gowns and tailored suits, dripping with jewelry that could fund a school district for a year. I've never seen so many diamonds in one place. "Stick with me," I said, guiding her toward the hors d'oeuvres table. "Try the shrimp. It's incredible." She laughed, completely relaxed, completely unaware that in about 30 minutes her entire understanding of who I was would explode. I'd been seeing Carla for 2 months. We'd met in the teacher's lounge at Jefferson High, bonded over terrible coffee and frustrating parent-teacher conferences. She taught English. She was brilliant, funny, and genuinely kind. She thought I was just another teacher scraping by on a modest salary. Tonight, that illusion was going to shatter. "How did you score tickets to this?" she asked, accepting a glass of champagne from a passing waiter. "I thought the Adamson Foundation Gala was invite-only." "Family connection," I said vaguely. Politicians worked the room. Business leaders clustered in groups, making deals between sips of expensive alcohol. Camera crews from 3 major news outlets positioned themselves strategically around the stage. My stomach tightened. Ready or not. At 8 o'clock sharp, Albert took the stage. The room fell silent immediately. That's the kind of respect $700 million commands. 60 years ago, he began, his voice steady despite his age. I started Adamson Industries in a garage with $500 and a dream. I built it into what it is today through hard work, smart decisions, and a refusal to compromise my principles. Applause rippled through the crowd. Albert raised a hand for silence. Tonight, we celebrate not just the company's success, but the next generation of leadership. My grandson, Raymond Adamson, has lived a life of purpose and principle. He chose meaning over comfort, character over luxury. Tonight, I'm proud to announce he's taking his rightful place in our family legacy, with full access to his $180 million inheritance. The room erupted. Applause thundered from every direction. Camera flashes exploded like small bombs. People turned to stare at me, some confused, most just seeing dollar signs. Carla's hand tightened on my arm. "Raymond?" Her voice barely reached me over the noise. "Did he just say, 'We should talk'?" I said quietly. But before I could explain anything, before I could even turn to face her properly, I saw her. Emily. She stood near the back of the ballroom in a red dress that probably maxed out whatever credit card she'd used. Her mouth hung open, literally hung open like she'd forgotten how jaws worked. Next to her, Gerald Harrison looked equally stunned, his spray tan seeming to fade under the chandelier lights. They'd crashed the gala. Had to be. Gerald probably wrangled an invitation through some business contact, brought Emily along so she could network with wealthy people, maybe drum up some marketing clients. Instead, she'd just learned her ex-husband, the nobody, the failure, the man she'd divorced because he wasn't ambitious enough, was worth more than everyone in this room except my grandfather. Our eyes met across the ballroom. I picked up a champagne glass from a nearby table, raised it slowly, deliberately, and smiled. A cold, controlled smile that said everything I needed to say. "You lost. You chose wrong. And now you know it." Emily's face drained of color. She stood frozen, completely frozen, while the crowd around her celebrated my newfound public wealth. I took a sip of champagne and watched her world collapse. 20 minutes later, I stood near the bar with Carla, who'd just heard the entire truth. About the name change, about why I kept it secret, about wanting someone who'd love Raymond the teacher, not whoever the Adamson heir happened to be. She took it better than I'd expected. "So you've been testing everyone you date," she said slowly, "to see if they want you or your money." "Yeah, that's actually kind of sad." She squeezed my hand. "But I get it. I really do." Before I could respond, Emily materialized beside us like some desperate ghost. "Raymond," her voice shook, "I need to talk to you." Gerald hovered behind her, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else on the planet. His yellow Corvette, probably. Maybe drowning in a lake somewhere. Emily, Gerald. I nodded to them both. Enjoying the party? You're an Adamson, Emily stammered. You've always been an Adamson. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted to be loved for who I am, not what I have. I kept my voice calm, controlled. Guess that was too much to ask. I turned slightly to Gerald. How are those car dealerships treating you, Gerald? He cleared his throat. Listen, man, I didn't know that my ex-wife left me because she thought you were richer. I smiled, not warm, not kind. Don't worry about it. She made her choice based on the information she had. Not your fault she's terrible at research. Emily's face flushed red. You lied to me for 8 years. I never lied. My jaw tightened. I changed my last name legally when I was 18. Everything I told you about my life was true. I just didn't mention my family's money because I wanted to know if you'd love me without it. Turns out you wouldn't. That's not fair. Fair? The word came out sharp. You called me a nobody, Emily. You said I'd never amount to anything. You divorced me because a car dealer bought you a bracelet. I set down my glass. I gave you 8 years of genuine partnership, and the moment you thought you found someone richer, you threw it away. That's not on me. Raymond, please. Tears streamed down her face now, mascara running in black tracks. I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. Can we talk? Privately? No. Just that. One word. Final. But we had 8 years together. You had 8 years to talk to me, to build a life with me, to be my partner. My voice stayed level, but everything inside me burned cold. Instead, you chose to end our marriage because I wasn't ambitious enough for you. Well, Emily, I am ambitious. I'm a teacher because I love teaching. Not because I couldn't do anything else. I chose meaningful work over easy wealth. You chose a Cartier bracelet. Gerald put a hand on her shoulder. Emily, let's go. She shrugged him off violently, her eyes desperate and wild. I still love you. No, you don't. I met her gaze directly. You love the idea of $180 million. That's not the same thing. I stepped back toward Carla. Goodbye, Emily. I hope Gerald makes you happy. I walked away. Behind me, I heard Emily's sobs break into full crying. Heard Gerald's uncomfortable silence. Carla took my arm as I reached her. That was brutal, she said softly. That was necessary, I replied. Emily stood there crying while Gerald looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. The morning after the gala, I woke up in my townhouse to 17 missed calls from Emily. 17. I stared at my phone screen, watching new voicemails populate one after another. The buzzing started again before I'd even gotten out of bed. Emily's name flashed across the display. I let it go to voicemail, then did the same for the next call, and the next. By noon, I'd stopped counting. The texts started rolling in too. Long, rambling messages about mistakes and regrets, and how she'd never stopped loving me. Right. She'd never stopped loving me so much that she'd hired an expensive attorney and paraded Gerald through our living room. The emails came next. Paragraphs of desperation claiming she'd been confused, that seeing me again reminded her what really mattered, that we could start over. I deleted every single one without reading past the first line. 3 days after the gala, Wednesday afternoon, she showed up at Jefferson High. I was walking to my car during lunch period when I spotted her standing next to my Camry. She wore jeans and a t-shirt, looking tired and desperate in a way I'd never seen during our marriage. Raymond. She rushed toward me. Please just hear me out. Leave, Emily. I kept walking, keys in hand. Or I'm calling security. We need to talk. I made a mistake. Gerald means nothing to me. I unlocked my car without responding. Got in, started the engine. She shouted something else, but I was already pulling out of the parking spot. In my rearview mirror, I watched her standing there in the middle of the parking lot, arms wrapped around herself like she was cold. The harassment didn't stop. More calls, more emails, more unexpected appearances. At my townhouse, at the grocery store near school, once even at the coffee shop where I graded papers on Saturday mornings. Other teachers started noticing. Marcus Pendleton, who taught English in the classroom next to mine, pulled me aside on Friday. "Everything okay, Raymond? I saw someone waiting by your car again yesterday." "My ex-wife," I said. "She's having trouble accepting the divorce is final." His eyebrows went up. "You need help? I can walk out with you if—" "I appreciate it, really." I managed a tired smile. "I'm handling it." But I wasn't handling it. Not well anyway. That evening I told Carla everything over dinner at her apartment. About the constant calls, the voicemails, the ambush in the school parking lot. She set down her fork, her expression serious. "Raymond, this is harassment. You might need to take legal action if she won't respect boundaries." "I know." I rubbed my face. "I keep hoping she'll just stop, accept that it's over. People like Emily don't stop on their own," Carla said quietly. "They stop when they're forced to." She was right. I knew she was right. 5 days after the gala, Monday evening, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. "This is Gerald. I'm done with Emily. She won't stop talking about you, won't stop obsessing. I can't compete with a ghost. Good luck, man, you're going to need it." I stared at the message for a long moment. So Gerald had dumped her. Couldn't say I was surprised. What man wants to date someone who's clearly in love with someone else? Or in love with someone else's bank account, more accurately? The next day, Emily's campaign intensified. 23 calls before noon, letters arriving at my townhouse, actual handwritten letters, pages and pages of desperate pleading. She showed up at school again. And again. I stopped answering my door, stopped checking my personal email. Then 1 week after the gala, Tuesday night at 10 o'clock, the pounding started. Bang, 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 fist on wood, relentless and desperate. I knew who it was before I looked through the peephole. Emily stood on my doorstep, eyes red and swollen from crying, hair uncombed, wearing sweatpants and an old college hoodie I vaguely recognized from our marriage. She looked wrecked, completely undone. I opened the door but didn't invite her in. "Raymond, please." She pounded the doorframe with one hand. "Just listen to me. I'll sign a prenup. I'll sign anything you want. I don't want your money. I don't care about the money. I just want you back. I just want us back." Her voice cracked on the last word, tears streaming down her face. I leaned against the doorframe, exhausted beyond measure. "You don't want me back, Emily. You want the life you think I can give you. There's a difference." "I made a mistake." Her voice pitched higher, desperate. "Don't I deserve a second chance?" I looked at her, really looked at her, standing there in clothes she probably hadn't changed in 2 days. Mascara streaked down her cheeks, shaking like she might fall apart completely. "You know what?" I said quietly. "You're right. People make mistakes. People deserve second chances sometimes." Hope flared in her eyes. "But you didn't just make a mistake, Emily. You looked at our entire marriage, 8 years of partnership, friendship, love, and decided it was worthless because I didn't make enough money. That's not— You hired an expensive lawyer to humiliate me," I continued, my voice steady and cold. "You brought your new boyfriend to our home to rub it in my face. You called me a nobody who would never amount to anything. Those weren't mistakes. Those were choices." She wrapped her arms around herself. "I was confused about what I wanted. You weren't confused." I shook my head. "You were greedy. And now that you know I have money, you're even more greedy. You don't love me. You never did. You loved what you thought I could provide. And when you found someone you thought could provide more, you left. The only thing that's changed is the number in my bank account." "That's not true." Tears spilled faster now. "Raymond, that's not true." "Then answer this." I straightened, meeting her eyes directly. "If I lost everything tomorrow, if the family business collapsed and I was back to being just a teacher making $52,000 a year, would you still be here? Would you still be standing on this doorstep begging to come back?" Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. Nothing came out. She stood there, frozen, her face going pale as the question hung between us like a verdict she couldn't escape. I watched her struggle, watched her try to form words that wouldn't come, watched the truth of what she was settle over her features. She couldn't answer, because we both knew what the real answer was. I nodded slowly. "That's what I thought. Raymond, Move on, Emily. I stepped back into my townhouse. I have. I closed the door in her face, turned the deadbolt. Through the wood, I heard her breath hitch, heard a sob that sounded like it came from somewhere deep and broken, but I didn't open the door again. The next morning, my phone started ringing at 6 a.m. Emily's name flashed on the screen. I silenced it and rolled over. It rang again 30 seconds later, and again, and again. I pulled open my bedroom curtain and looked down at the street. Emily's silver Honda sat parked directly across from my townhouse, engine off. She'd been there all night. The calls kept coming, 37 times before I left for school. I didn't answer a single one. When I walked to my car, Emily jumped out of hers and rushed toward me. "Raymond, please." "Just 5 minutes." I got in my Camry, locked the doors, and backed out of my space. She stood in the middle of the street, hands pressed against my rear window until I was forced to stop or hit her. I rolled down my window an inch. "Move, Emily. Not until you talk to me. Move or I'm calling the police." She finally stepped aside, tears streaming down her face. I drove to Jefferson High and made it through first period before the front office called my classroom. Emily was in the parking lot again asking to see me. This became the pattern. 30, sometimes 40 calls a day. Voicemails that ranged from sobbing apologies to angry accusations. Handwritten letters showed up at my townhouse, long, rambling pages about how we belonged together, how she'd changed, how I was being cruel and unfair. She followed me to the grocery store on Saturday, appeared at my gym on Tuesday evening, waited outside restaurants when I went to dinner with Carla. I started documenting everything. Screenshots of call logs, photos of her car parked outside my home, saved every letter, every email, every text. 2 weeks after I closed the door in her face, I sat across from Todd Sanders in his downtown law office. Todd flipped through my documentation, his expression darkening with each page. "This is textbook harassment, Raymond. Obsessive pattern, escalating behavior, complete disregard for your stated boundaries. Can we stop it? Restraining order. I'll file the paperwork this afternoon." He looked up at me. "You have more than enough evidence here. The court will grant a temporary order immediately, and we'll get a hearing for a permanent one within a few weeks." I signed the necessary forms right there in his office. 3 days later, the court granted the temporary restraining order. Emily was legally prohibited from contacting me or coming within 200 yards of my home or workplace. A process server delivered the order to her apartment that same afternoon. For exactly 4 days, my phone stayed quiet. Then it rang from a number I didn't recognize. I answered out of habit. "Raymond, it's me. Please don't hang up." I ended the call and immediately reported the violation to the police. The next day, Emily waited in the Jefferson High parking lot during my lunch period. A colleague spotted her and told me before I went outside. I called the police again. 2 officers arrived and found Emily sitting in her car, watching the building entrance. They issued a formal warning. Any further violations would result in arrest and criminal charges, including possible jail time. That finally broke through. The calls stopped. The letters stopped. The surprise appearances stopped. Complete silence. I heard through mutual friends that Emily had quit her marketing director position. Couldn't focus, they said. Too distracted. The embarrassment of everyone knowing she'd divorced a man worth $180 million was apparently too much to handle at her old workplace. Someone else mentioned Emily had burned through her savings, maintaining the lifestyle she'd built while dating Gerald. All those designer clothes, expensive dinners, the red dress she wore to the gala, none of it came cheap on a 6-figure salary. Gerald was facing his own reckoning. Word traveled fast in business circles. The story was too good not to share. Car dealer dates married woman, gets dumped when woman discovers her ex-husband is actually rich. Gerald went from looking successful to looking like a fool who got played. Potential investors pulled out of expansion deals. A major lender started asking uncomfortable questions about Gerald's judgment and business stability. 4 weeks after the gala, Dad called me. "Thought you'd want to know," he said. Emily moved to Arizona. Fresh start, apparently. Good for her. And Gerald Harrison just sold one of his dealerships. Had to, from what I understand. Financial pressure. I sat back in my chair, processing. So she's broke and starting over in another state. He's lost a third of his business. That's karma for you, Dad said quietly. You didn't have to do anything, Raymond. They destroyed themselves. He was right. I hadn't lifted a finger beyond protecting myself legally. Everything else, the financial collapse, the ruined reputations, the desperate moves to other states, they'd done that to themselves through their own choices. How are you doing? Dad asked. Honestly, I'm good, really good. And I was. 9 months after the gala, I stood in Grandfather's study with a leather portfolio under my arm, feeling more certain about anything than I'd felt in years. Carla sat beside me on the leather couch, her hand resting comfortably on my knee. Dad leaned against Grandfather's desk, arms crossed, waiting. Grandfather himself sat in his high-backed chair, 89 years old and still sharp enough to cut glass. So, Grandfather said, you called this meeting. I'm listening. I opened the portfolio and pulled out the proposal I'd spent 3 months developing. The Adamson Education Initiative. I want to expand the foundation's work in a direction that actually matters to me. Dad raised an eyebrow. Go on. Full scholarships for students from low-income families who want to become teachers, not just tuition, living expenses, books, everything. We fund their entire education. I slid the first page across the desk. Second component, classroom resource grants for schools in underserved districts. Teachers shouldn't have to buy supplies with their own money. Third, salary supplements in struggling districts to attract and retain quality educators. Grandfather studied the numbers, his weathered finger tracing down the columns. Initial funding estimate? $20 million to start. Scale up from there based on results. Carla had been quiet through all the planning sessions, all the late-night conversations about how to structure this. Now she squeezed my hand, and I knew she understood exactly why this mattered. The past 9 months had been about building something real. Carla and I talked for hours about what wealth meant, what we wanted from life, what mattered when you stripped away all the superficial garbage. She moved into my upgraded townhouse 3 months ago. Nicer place, better neighborhood, but still modest by Adamson standards. She loved that I chose teaching, that I went to work every day at Jefferson High not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Because it meant something. Grandfather looked up from the proposal. This is exactly what family wealth should do, Raymond. Support causes that align with who you are, what you're passionate about. Not just throwing money at generic charity dinners and feeling good about ourselves. I'm staying at the school, I added. I'm not quitting teaching to run this full time. I'll be on the board, I'll oversee strategy, but I'm not leaving my classroom. Dad smiled. Wouldn't expect anything different. That's who you are. That's who you've always been, Carla said softly. Money didn't change it, money just gave you more tools to do what you already believed in. Grandfather tapped the proposal with one finger. $20 million initial allocation, approved. Douglas, work with Raymond on the foundation structure. I want this launched within 6 months. I felt something settle in my chest. Purpose. Peace. The sense that I was finally using this wealth the way it was supposed to be used, not to buy status or prove anything to anyone, but to make an actual difference in the world I cared about. 2 years after the gala, I stood in front of a foundation board meeting wearing jeans and a button-down shirt, presenting the Adamson Education Initiative's annual report. 200 scholarship recipients, 50 schools funded, classroom libraries built, science labs equipped, art programs saved from budget cuts. I attended these meetings as myself. No pretense, no performance. Just Raymond, the history teacher who happened to have access to generational wealth and decided to do something meaningful with it. Last month I proposed to Carla. Nothing fancy, just the two of us at the park where we used to grade papers together during our lunch breaks. Simple question. She cried and said yes. We're planning a small wedding, 50 people, close friends and family, no media circus, no spectacle. Through mutual friends, I heard the final updates about Emily and Gerald. Emily's working as a receptionist somewhere in Arizona, struggling to make ends meet after burning through her savings on designer clothes and luxury dinners. Gerald sold 2 of his 3 dealerships and moved to Florida to start over. I don't hate her. Honestly, I barely think about her anymore. She made her choice based on who she thought I was, and in doing so, She showed me exactly who she was. Now, I teach American history to teenagers who think they know everything. I plan a wedding to a woman who loves me for all the right reasons. I use my family's wealth to fund scholarships and build better schools. And every single morning I wake up grateful that Emily divorced me. Because if she hadn't, I might never have found this life, the one I was always meant to live. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's just being happy. Genuinely, authentically happy. And I am. I really, really am. I believe stories such as this find us for a reason. If this one touches you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day. In the meantime, there are 2 stories on the screen that are even better.